Again, welcome everybody. My name is Nicholas Clements, admissions counselor and recruiter for Cal State San Bernardino, and I will be one of your hosts today. And to get started, I'd just like our team to go ahead and introduce themselves.
And my name is Salvador Perez Jr. I'm also going to be hosting this presentation, and I'm also an admissions counselor recruiter.
Hello, everyone.
Morning.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris. Okay, good morning. My name is Fsa Id, admissions counselor at Cal State San Bernardino.
And I'm Christopher Bosey, admissions counselor, also for California State University, San Bernardino.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Iveth Diaz, Eop Admissions counselor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marisol Lopez, and I'm your Native American Outreach Counselor at California State University, San Bernardino.
Good morning, everyone. Brenda Matuki here, admissions counselor at California State University, San Bernardino, and my home campus is at the Palm Desert campus. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Alejandra Quintero, admissions counselor, and I'm also at the Palm Desert campus.
And then we also have someone from the financial aid department joining us today. I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Coleen, and I am one of the financial aid advisors here at CSUSB's Financial Aid and Scholarships Department.
All right, and I think that's everyone. So we got a few things we're going to talk about. As you guessed, we're going to be talking about financial aid, but I'll be starting with some deadlines. And I want to share my screen and just go over where you can find this information on our website. Okay, so can we see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Yvette's giving me the thumbs up. Okay, so our website, I'm sure you're familiar with it, CSUSB.edu. I always use this little hamburger in the top right corner. I call it the hamburger. It kind of looks like one. And to get to our specific admissions website, first column. And so when you go to apply to CSUSB, you're going to find first year students, so students coming right out of high school, and transfer student deadlines. So let's just go over the first year student deadlines. Scroll down a little bit. So as I'm sure you know, the deadline for the application is December 15th. February 15th, if requested for high school students, is the partial transcript deadline. Okay, last year we did not require them. We are unsure if we were going to require them this year or not. So just keep that in mind. If requested, February 15th is the deadline for official partial transcripts. So they either need to come electronically or physically through the mail or dropped off in our office. Scrolling down, we can see that on May 1st, the enrollment confirmation deposit is due. If required, early start. We didn't do early start last year. We might do it this year, but if required, the deadline for early start is May 17th. June 14th is our first year orientation deadline. And then by July 15th, final transcripts need to be submitted. Again, either through electronically or in a physical format through the mail or dropped off in our office. So one thing I will mention is that all of our students will receive, after they submit their application, their Coyote ID number and instructions on how to set up their Coyote portal. They'll be getting all of these deadlines on their to-do list and via email. So if students are asking, you know, I'm not receiving any communication from Cal State, make sure they have their Coyote portal set up. We'll go over here to look at the transfer deadlines, very similar to the first year student deadlines. We are still in the middle of spring application cycle. So you'll see the spring deadlines, but on the fall side here, again, December 15th, the application deadline. For our veteran and returning students, July 31st is the deadline for them. February 15th, partial official transcripts are due. They are required for our transfer students. May 1st is when the enrollment confirmation deposit is due. June 15th is transfer orientation deadline. And then July 15th are the final official transcripts. That's when those are due. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. So now I want to direct you to the returning students section. And this is specifically for our transfer counselors out there. So under apply to CSUSB, sorry, I should have explained that. Go to returning students and you'll be directed to this website. And if you just scroll down a little bit, I want to go over this category chart that we just put up. It's really straightforward, really informative for our returning students. So first of all, it's just going to ask you, did you attend CSUSB previously? And if it's a no, I mean, that's where it ends right there, then you are not a returning student. But if it is a yes, it walks you through what type of returning student you are. So when you left CSUSB, when a student leaves CSUSB, there are 3 different options for them, or 3 different categories for them. If they were below a 2.0 GPA, they would be a probationary student and they need to get in contact with our academic advising department to set up a contract with them for readmission. If they were disqualified, they still need to get in touch with academic advising for additional steps that they may need to take. And if they were above a 2.0, then they would continue on through this graphic here. But we'll look at the below 2.0 first. If they did have a below 2.0, then they are a probationary returning transfer student. Students who stopped attending CSUSB and did complete additional coursework since leaving CSUSB are considered to be returning transfer students. So this is if they completed additional coursework since leaving, meaning then they are held to our transfer student requirements, the 60 units, the golden 4, and the minimum GPA. If they did not complete additional coursework after, then they are either just a returning student or they are a returning probationary student, okay? Now, we do have a counselor who is specifically designated for returning students. Her name is Alicia G, and we'll go ahead and put her contact information in the chat. And if students have questions or they're confused by this graphic, if they're unsure of what category they fall under, they can always contact Alicia, all right? I know Yvette is going to talk about returning EOP. So I'll pass it over to Yvette.
Thank you so much, Nick. And I just wanted to outline for those returning EOP students, which are students that were part of EOP at Cal State San Bernardino or any other Cal State, and they were part of their EOP program. If they are trying to return to CSUSB, then they would not have to do all the steps that Nick just mentioned. So for our EOP returning students, all they would have to do is that they would have to contact me. I go ahead and can conduct a preliminary evaluation even before they apply to see if they're in a good spot to then work with the student and help them do the application. So I can assist with that pre-application process, or if a student has already applied, we can go ahead and work with them. So there are 2 types of students, returners for EOP. We have students that meet our reinstatement readmission criteria, which for EOP would be the same as our transfer admission criteria, including 60 semester or 90 quarter units, transferable units, at least a 2.0 GPA for non-impacted majors, and they have until July 30th to apply. So those would be the requirements for our returning students. So if a student meets that criteria, then we can go ahead and schedule a returning student appointment where students meet with our EOP director and they sign contracts. Or if a student is not there yet in meeting our readmission criteria, we have what's called a reinstatement options contract, where the student still meets with an EOP counselor and we outline those additional courses requirements that they would have to do. Let's say, for example, if they need to bump up their GPA or if they need additional units to then be readmitted with us. So by this time, students would still work directly with an EOP counselor, as mentioned, and they can help them in outlining those additional classes We typically advise students that do not meet those requirements to attend a local community college, but we help the students along the way. For all of you that might be high school counselors, I do encourage you to please encourage your students to apply to EOP as first-time freshmen. As you know, our application is part of the CSU Apply application. And especially if you do have students that might be potential exceptions, please feel free to get in contact with me. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information onto the chat. But a definition of an EOP exception would be a student that does not meet all A through G criteria. So they might be missing one semester of English or one semester of math, but they do have the potential to succeed in higher education. Then please feel free to get in contact with me or share my contact information with your students. And I'd be more than happy to help them along the way with their application. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Salvador.
Thank you. So I'm going to be going over establishing residency. Let me just share my screen. All right, so to be able to find the information in regards to how to establish your residency, in our website, you just click the hamburger. And you'll click admissions. And under apply to CSUSB, then you'll just scroll over here and then click establishing residency. So this is all of our information. It'll break down what is necessary for a student to be considered resident of California or to establish residency. And so what's important under this is that it informs the student that certain requirements have to be established under California law for a student to pay in-state tuition fees, because out-of-state tuition fees are much higher than in-state. It's pretty much like 3 times the amount. We will first make that determination with what a student responds in their Cal State Apply application. But if required, the CSU residence questionnaire may also be considered to make that determination. Okay, so you'll find that information here. So under initial determination to establish residency, the student must be 19 years of age or older. If not, then the residence status is derived from the parent or the legal guardian. And 2 ways for residency to be established is under physical presence. So the student or parent or guardian must be physically present in California for more than 1 year immediately preceding the residence determination date. And then you'll see here when that is. So for students that are applying for fall of 2022, we need them to establish their residency by September 20th. Okay. And under intent, the student or parent or guardian must demonstrate intent to remain indefinitely in the state for more than 1 year immediately preceding the residence determination date, and sever our residential ties with the former state or country of residence. Okay. And this is the supporting information that we do ask students to submit to us for us to make that determination. So for example, we do have state driver's license as one example. As you scroll down, so non-residents can also establish the residency with the AB 540. And this applies also to undocumented students. So to qualify, a student must have attended and received credit of a combination of 3 years from K through 12 or even community college. So they must also have received a California high school diploma or GED. And this will also apply more for transfer students if they've completed the minimum transfer requirements and received a degree at the community college. So in regards to the combinations of 3 years from K through 12 or community college, and must have graduated from high school or received, like if they're transferring, received an associate's degree from the community college or have met the transfer requirements. And you'll be able to find the California non-resident tuition exception request if you click here. So this will also provide you additional information. I'll pretty much break it down for you again in a couple pages. So going back to this page, if you move forward, you'll see other exceptions and exemptions. If the student did not meet the criteria from the information provided above, so it will actually direct the student or the parent to the Cal State website, and they'll provide you more information here on how to be exempt from paying in-state tuition. And then if you move forward, so there was a mistake within the application, and the student is resident of California. They do need to provide us the additional information, like the documents that were requested, or these are some examples of what they could provide for us. And so these are the steps that they need to meet. So pretty much what it's saying is that they need to provide us information 30 days before we make a decision on their application. But we do ask students to provide this information by February 15 if they're applying for fall. And students are applying for spring, we do ask for this information by October 1st. Okay. So we do ask for before 30 days, but we prefer that we have it by these deadlines. Okay. And there's also additional information for undocumented students under our Undocumented Student Success Center. All right. If you have any questions in regards to residency, you can email our residency specialist with this email, residency@csusb.edu. All right, and I'll provide this link in the chat for you to view. And I'm going to pass this forward to Coleen, who's going to talk to you about financial aid and resources under financial aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Salvador. Once again, my name is Coleen, and I'm one of the advisors here in the Financial Aid Department at CSUSB. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Can you all see?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. So we're going to start the slideshow. Uh-oh. There you go. Alrighty, so we are going to talk about the financial aid application process, and there are actually two types of application available. For those who are eligible for federal student aid, we have the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA for short. And what it does is it collects families' information, specifically the personal and financial info used to calculate the financial strength of the household, or what we refer to as EFC, or expected family contribution. The application opens on October 1st of each year. And for the incoming 2022 to 2023 award year, it will be based on the 2020 income tax year information. It's always encouraged for everyone to file early. The priority deadline is March 2nd, 2022, and every March 2nd of each year. Now, this priority deadline is very important specifically for those who may also be eligible for state aid, but to apply for the FAFSA for as long as the award year is still open, which typically is from July 1st of the current year to June 30th of the next year. The application is available in English and Spanish. The next application is the California DREAM Act application, or CADA for short. And this applies to those who are AB 540 students that we had just discussed. And likewise, it collects families' personal and financial information, which will be used again to calculate the EFC. The application opens at the same time as FAFSA, which is October 1st of each year. And for the incoming award year 22-23, it also uses 2020 tax year information. Now, this priority deadline over here is strict as far as state aid because of the limited funding sources. So really, you have to file on or before this March 2nd deadline. Otherwise, you may lose that eligibility by filing late. And then you're going to have to go through an appeal process as well through the California Student Aid Commission. For those who are applying for FAFSA, the first step really is to create your FSA ID. This applies to students, the parents, as well as student loan or parent loan borrowers. With the FSA ID, you will use it to fill out your free application for federal student aid or FAFSA form, sign your master promissory notes for those who will be borrowing student loans, applying for repayment plans, completing loan counseling, and also using the public service loan forgiveness help tool. And items that are needed to create an account will be a social security number, your cell phone number, and or email address. For FAFSA, this is the website, studentaid.gov. And then you can go ahead and click on this link that says apply for aid. It will take you to the application itself. Now, if you're a first-time applicant, you can go ahead and click on start here. And for those returning users, you may also go ahead and go log in. For California DREAM Act, this is the website. It's through the California Student Aid Commission, which is, of course, through the state of California. And if you're a first-time user, you can go ahead and click on start, and then it's going to ask for all of your personal information that you need to create an account. If you're a returning user, you can also log back in. And for parents, you are going to click on the submit here on this parents section to sign the application. For FAFSA applicants, there is a great tool. It's called the IRS Data Retrieval tool, which actually transfers your information from the actual tax return that was filed and sends that information over to the FAFSA. This prevents, data entry errors that may happen, if you are kind of physically entering all the information on your tax returns. In order to take advantage of this tool, you must have a valid social security number and also your own email address. Now, there are certain situations where you might not be able to use it, especially if you are victims of identity theft, or for those students or parents who are married but filed as married separately or head of household, or marital status is unmarried and both parents are living together. The next slide discusses common mistakes that students and or parents may actually enter into the application. The first one on here is the name and social security number mismatch. It is important for students and or parents to put the name that appears exactly on the social security card, because that is the main data that will be used to match the information on FAFSA. There's also the dependent versus independent status confusion, if you will, because there are certain criteria that a student must meet in order for them to be considered independent. And those questions will be on the FAFSA. It's all the yes or no questions on the dependency status that will determine if a student is considered dependent or independent. And there's also the question of which parent's financial information to use, especially if parents may be separated or divorced. It is usually the parents that will be providing most of the support for that academic year that the student will be coming into school. So that's typically the parent information to use. If parents are living together, even though they're not married, both parents' financial information needs to be used. And of course, who is considered part of the household? For dependent students, it's usually those individuals that the parent or parents will be supporting more than 50% during that academic year. And for independent students, that could be their children or any other family members who live with them and whom they will be providing the same level of support as well, which is more than 50%. And of course, sometimes students and parent questions could be kind of confused or interchanged. I've seen students sometimes put in the parents' information on their own. So just make sure that you don't confuse the data for either one. And there could be missing signature issues, especially for dependent students whose parents may not be able to apply for an FSA ID. There is a tool that you can use to actually print a signature page and send it over, because if there are signatures missing, the expected family contribution will not be calculated, so the financial aid office will not know what you may be eligible for. And make sure that you are reviewing your information before submitting. And for parents, as I mentioned, that may not have a social, you need to put all zeros on the application, and not like, you know, the ITIN if they have an ITIN and file their taxes. So we've been talking about this expected family contribution for a while now, or the EFC. So this is actually a number that is generated when a student submits a free application for federal student aid or California DREAM Act application. Based on financial info and household size provided on the application, it gives the financial aid office an estimate of what the family can contribute to their cost of attendance. It's not what the family will pay as far as tuition fees and all that. It's just the estimate of what they can contribute. So it is important to provide the information that is as accurate as possible. And if the student or parent makes an error, they need to contact the school immediately so they can make the appropriate corrections. And keep in mind that the lower the expected family contribution, that means that the financial aid award will be higher. So typically if a student puts out a 0 EFC, they would receive the maximum financial aid funding. And Cal Grant awards also take this into consideration. And that is why they kind of like mirror as far as their deadlines and the information that they ask for. Now, there's also a component of the cost of attendance that is considered as far as financial aid eligibility. We refer to it as a budget. So it combines all of the associated costs when it comes to attending school, which are referenced below. So the tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal and miscellaneous expenses. So cost of attendance amounts are estimates. So the Department of Education sends out surveys every year of different, states and students attending those institutions. So that's where they get the average costs of those components that we discussed earlier. So actual expenses may vary, and sometimes the total cost may be less. For the direct costs, these are tuition, mandatory fees, on-campus room and board if a student is choosing to live on campus. And these are the ones that the school will actually charge the students directly. Indirect costs could be transportation and personal and miscellaneous expenses. Not that the school is charging you these items, but of course you would have to also spend, money on these things for you to go to school. And of course, books and supplies, which could be direct or indirect costs, depending on what the student chooses to do, because you have options. You can rent the books, you can buy it from outside sources and all that. Now, there's also a concept of need that is considered to calculate the award. The higher the student need, the higher the financial aid award. So the formula for this is the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution, or the EFC, and that will give you the total need. And where does financial aid come from? The federal government is one of the major sources of the federal funding aid. So that includes federal Pell Grant, which is free money that students do not have to pay back. Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or FSEOG, which is also free money. Student loans, which could be subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. Parent Plus loans. And for graduate students, there's also the Graduate Plus loan. And then there's a federal Teach Grant for those students who may be interested to get into the teacher credential program. And also federal work study, which is like being a student worker on a campus. While AB 540 students may not be eligible for federal aid, they can always get funding sources from the state. And that is the Cal Grant programs in particular. And there are several types. For Cal Grant A, this typically pays for your basic tuition. There's also Cal Grant B, which pays for not only the tuition, but you also get a supplemental amount as well to use for other costs associated with school, like your books, transportation, and the like. There's also Cal Grant B for foster youth or even previous foster youths. Students with Dependent Children Program, Chafee Foster Youth Grant Program, Middle Class Scholarships, Golden State Teacher Grant, and the California Dream Act Service Incentive Grant Program. And if you want more information on these and other programs offered by the state of California, you can always visit csac.ca.gov. And once again, these grants may be available to those who are California residents, depending on your eligibility, and also the AB 540s. Here is how the website looks like. And then you can always log in and create an account, which we also encourage, because you can always see like real-time status of applications, anything that's missing, forms and all that, signatures. You can go ahead and submit those forms through the account online. And also do not forget to claim your Cal Grant. So after creating Web Grants for Students account, make sure that you confirm your school, or if the school information is incorrect, you can always change the school code on their website, and of course, certify your high school graduation. And there are also certain financial aid programs that are offered by the institutions, such as the State University Grant Program. State University grants cover also the basic tuition, just like a Cal Grant. But if you get a State University grant, you may not be able to get the Cal Grant anymore, because there's only supposed to be one tuition paying grant program applied. And then there's also the Educational Opportunity Program Grant, or the EOP, Dream Loan for CSUs and UCs, and also institutional scholarships. And there are also certain private agencies, companies, foundations, and employers that offer some sort of financial aid or scholarships, which could be for California residents, AB 540s, and pretty much anyone who is eligible. Oops. For scholarships, you need to start looking at the school, of course, that you are planning to attend. We have on our website, there is also a dedicated spot where you can apply for institutional scholarships. You can also ask your high school counselor's office if they can refer you to some scholarship applications. Parents' employers may also offer these scholarships to their students or their employee students. Service clubs like the Rotary, the Lions Club, and the Elks Club. There's also some ethnic organizations that will offer for those specific, students belonging to certain cultural and ethnic backgrounds. And of course, the internet is a vast source as far as looking for scholarships, and also local corporations such as Walmart and PG&E. So how does the financial aid process work? So when you file and submit your FAFSA or CADA, it goes through what they call a central processing system, where all the information will be kind of filtered and interpreted. And based on that information, the student and the school will receive what they call a SAR, or a student aid report. So it's kind of like a snapshot, or what we call a summary of what you submitted on your application. And then depending if a student gets selected for a random process called verification, there are certain documents that students and or parents may need to submit to the school. And then once that is completed, the school awards the students, and then students accept their awards. In the case of CSUSB, it's called your My Coyote portal. Now, there are also certain special circumstances and income appeals that may be applied on a case by case. So depending on certain situations that happen, say a dependency override may be requested. So maybe a student initially was a dependent student when they submitted the FAFSA, but their circumstances changed, and then they may be considered, different dependency status. You can always look into that. If there is a death or serious illness in the family that affects income, maybe a loss or reduction of, or loss and reduction of benefits, contact your school's financial aid office right away, because your eligibility might change and it might be a little bit more advantageous to the student in any of these situations. Also, please keep in mind that financial aid has limits, and students should always use their financial aid wisely. It's important to keep in contact with your major to make sure that you complete your program in the most efficient and timely manner, and also contact your financial aid advisors regularly if there are issues, and always remember to make a plan, because financial aid now has unit caps and time limits. For instance, for the Pell Grant, it's approximately about 6 years full-time or 600% usage, and after that, you will not be eligible for Pell Grant anymore. For Cal Grant, it's 4 years of full-time enrollment. And if you are a grad student, you will not be eligible for the Cal Grant anymore. So it's only for undergrad. And so it's always important to make a budget, because some financial aid needs to be repaid. So if you get refunds, say from student loans or parent loans, remember to use the refunds wisely, because you're going to have to pay that back. And also, it's always encouraged to graduate in 4 years by taking 15 units per semester. But of course, sometimes life happens that we cannot stop it from doing so. Just make sure that you pay attention to these, maximum time frame and percentages as far as using your financial aid. And that is the end of our slideshow. This is our contact information. I'll also be putting the financial aid wellness coordinator on the chat box. And that is Veronica Medina. She's on vacation right now, and that's why I'm filling in for her. And I'll also put in my information just in case you want to reach out to me as well. And now we're ready for questions.
Thanks, Colleen. That was very informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or unmute yourself if you'd like. Any questions about financial aid or anything we've gone over today, or anything in general regarding admissions, please let us know. Now's the time. This is our last educator session for the fall semester.
I have a question. Hi, everyone. This is Mariana from Crafton Hills College. Hi, Nick. Hi, Chris. Hi, Lucia. My question has to do with the Cal Grant. I know that it's 4 years. I saw that on the slide, maximum, but does it depend how long, like this, is it 4 years only of Cal Grants? Or let's just say that a student has been out of high school for 10 years and they come to a community college, and then are they eligible still for the Cal Grant because it's been more than 4 years they've been out of high school? Does my question make sense?
It does make sense. It's a very good question. It depends on the program. So it's not like, say, I spent 2 years on community college and then I transitioned over to CSU and all that. The determination will be as far as what degree program they are trying to complete. Because there are certain programs that may require students to be in school for 5 years, for instance. So that one, they can still get up to 5 years worth of Cal Grant. But unfortunately, beyond that, you would have to go through an appeal process, and you're going to have to send that over to the California Student Aid Commission.
So it doesn't matter if the student took 10 years after high school and then comes to community college, it's 4 years of Cal Grant, or 5, depending on the program, when they started.
Correct. It's
Okay.
Specific to the program itself.
Got it. Because sometimes I've heard this at the community college, or I don't know that it's been at the community college, maybe it's other conferences where we are recommended, or students are recommended, to hold off on the Cal Grants until they get to the university. And then I hear that they time out. So I just wasn't sure, but thank you for clarifying that.
Well, the key to that is if you got Cal Grant already from, say, community, and then those, whatchamacallit, those units were transferred in. So then that kind of takes away, whatever those units to complete the program. Because you can always send over your G6 form or the transfer form, transitioning from your community college over to a traditional 4-year program.
But if a student was at the community college and didn't use any of their financial aid, right? Let's just say they paid it out of pocket, and then they decide that, okay, maybe when I transfer to the university, I will start using my Cal Grant.
Right.
How would that work?
That's a good strategy too, especially since typically the Cal States will have a higher tuition cost than community. Some students may want to or may prefer to pay out of pocket in community and kind of start fresh when they transition over to a regular 4-year program. So that's also a good strategy, so as to not lose out on any of the Cal Grant.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And do they have to indicate that at the Cal Grant website that they're, well, if they're not applying for financial aid, then that wouldn't
then
apply.
it won't.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Good question, Mariana. That's why we often tell transfer students if they're qualifying for the BOG waiver. Since we don't have BOG, utilize that at the community college and save your Cal Grants for when you get to the 4-year.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions, please put them in the chat. Unmute yourself. This is a great time to ask questions, especially for financial aid. If not, we will finish early. It's Friday. Happy Friday. So no questions. We did an awesome job.
There's a question in the chat here. For Coleen, does the amount you receive depend on when you submit your FAFSA?
Okay, I take back that confetti that I just put out there. Anyway, so it does not really depend on when you submit your FAFSA. It depends on that expected family contribution, if you remember, the EFC. So that is the number that financial aid advisors or counselors will use to determine what your eligibility will be. Although there was that priority deadline that we keep mentioning, and that is March 2nd, because for students who may be eligible for certain state grants, like the Cal Grant, you need to meet that priority deadline. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on that other source of aid. So it depends on two things, your family contribution and when you submitted your FAFSA for certain state grants.
We do recommend it is helpful to kind of submit that early, the FAFSA or the I can't think right now, it's Friday. But to submit it early, just because, the UC's Cal States, most of us have deadlines that you have to notify us whether you're attending. And so we tell students that you want to make sure this is going to work out for you financially. I know in my case, being first generation, my deciding factor was going to be pretty much who gave me the most free money. And so that's when it's very helpful to fill out the FAFSA early. And I think a lot of times what holds up students' financial aid award or offer being sent out is the verification. They get selected for the random verification and unfortunately don't submit that information in a timely manner. So that holds up the financial aid offer.
That's a very good point, Lucia, because keep in mind, these are the verification process is randomly selected and they're only looking at the financial information that you submitted on the FAFSA, nothing else. And this is just to make sure that you're entering the correct information, because if you say maybe kind of shortchange yourself by putting in like more, on some other income information on there, and we determined that you did not need to put that info, so then you get more in financial aid. So it's just a checks and balance kind of thing. We're not looking for anyone to ding or anything like that. We're not, the IRS or anything. It's just to make sure that you are correctly being awarded your financial aid.
Other questions? If not, we are going to close the Zoom meeting.
Confetti time then. Put that back out there again.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. This was our last counselor update for the fall semester. So we'll see you in the spring. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.